This being the concept of nothing, the concept of not existing as a cosmic entity that existed for an undetermined amount of time. So when the bang decides to big, it suddenly produced the 0 point as a second unfathomably powerful omnipotent being. We don't really know what it is, but it sure is. The 0 point is the polar opposite of the nothing, and supposedly is capable of linking together every universe that has shown up since the Big Bang, making it so each reality could reach each other through the 0 point through like reality shenanigans. Now this would be the case for about 99.9999998% of all of time. We're already almost done with the timeline. No, I'm just messing with you. The last 0.0000002% is where things start falling apart. One day, possibly thousands of years ago, a faction showed up called the Imagined Order, led by this guy named Geno showed up, with the goal of creating the perfect genetic society. And so he took a nice old gander at the 0 point and was all like, crackers, man, we gotta get that blue stuff and put it in a box. So they got that blue stuff and they put it in a box, trapping the 0 point in this place called the Bridge. Alongside Geno, members include his 2 daughters, the Imagined and the Order. Great names, I'm sure he thought real hard about those ones. We also got Dr. Sloan as a second in command, alongside Agent John Jones, who in terms of being important to the Imagined Order, he's just okay. But in this overall, he's a special little friend who we will all love by the end. The Order sends Agent Jones to be experimented on in the 0 point. In response, it creates a new type of person called a snapshot, with this snapshot being Jonesy the First, just good old default player Jonesy. Physically, Jonesy the First was present, but mentally he was about the same as a scared deer you would run over in the deep Midwest. The Order then continues to learn and use the 0 point, firmly grasping and taming what can only be described as the mother of everything to ever. Eventually, with all this new stuff learned, the Imagined Order is going to go and create the most despicable and rotten and mischievous thing comprehensible with this silly old blob of blue, and for thousands of years forced the creation of the Loop, which involves abusing the 0 point to grab worthy-ish people from all kinds of realities and universes where they would fight for 22-minute cycles in the Battle Royale gameplay, where top combatants might just get recruited to join the Imagined Order, or in some cases, they downright escape the Loop with no consequence. For example, Batman does it, so it just requires Batman-level skill. If you want to know what the Loop is like, just go play Fortnite. That's what the Loop is. Like, every game is canon, every death is canon, and the storm is like an extra thing that comes from the Loop, preparing to happen over and over until potentially the end of time itself. And all of this has been taking place located at the center of it all at Reality Zero, the name for this location, for this cycle, for this sick and twisted plan the Imagined Order is brewing in the demonic realm of Fortnite. Every person stuck on the island is referred to as a looper. They lose a good chunk of their memories, and with very, very few exceptions, unless they break out of the loop, are unable to speak. Now, the Imagined Order, I won't lie, they've been kind of uncool fellas this whole time, with the whole never-ending fight to the death thing, and it gets especially bad when a looper gets to leave the loop. Snapshots then show up. Treat all of this stuff like catch-alls and ways to justify all of these characters and crossovers being able to stay in the game for so long without any issues in their respective existences. Marvel, DC, Star Wars, sports, Capcom, basically anything that is not Nintendo will have their characters or people dragged in here one way or another. Their characters will win relatively early on, and then an endless supply of them are going to show up via snapshots. Or not, you know, it's completely illogical and stupid when these characters are all canon and count and show up in each battle pass. It's stupid. It's dumb. I don't like it already. The problem with a lot of these characters is that they can be taken at points where it completely obliterates their respective narratives. With all superheroes, it's not a big deal, but you can make a new Superman, you can make a new Iron Man, it's fine. The same thing happens with Rick and Morty. It's technically canon because there's infinite Ricks, infinite Mortys, so it makes sense. But then we got Peter Griffin, and Family Guy will collapse upon itself without Peter Griffin. And then we also got like all the anime characters who are taken in their primes, and then like deliberate spider people who are established and emphasized as necessary to their worlds. What do you do then? What's gonna happen when Sonic bounces around in Fortnite land? Honestly, it doesn't matter. We can ignore it. The fun thing about a multiverse story is that you can just say a multiverse happened, and that removes all need to make confidence where these characters come from. We can just say they got taken from different worlds from the main ones, and it's fine, you know? Plus, Fortnite doesn't respond to my DMs, so I guess we'll never know. I just gotta stress this. The Imagined Order's been in control for millennia. They've been out and about stealing as many people as possible from all kinds of realities just because it's funny. The problem with having infinite people getting stuck in your loop is that eventually the infinite people stuck in your loop are gonna accumulate at least a few who are gonna resist the very thing you got going on. With that being said, this is the 7. We got a team of 6.5 members who want to go around and protect the 0 point, so all universes can finally stop being dragged into Fortnite. First up, we got the Foundation. This is Dwayne Johnson. This is the leader. We don't gotta worry about this guy. He's fine. Then we got the that one. If I mispronounce it, it's fine. I'm told she does cool stuff. Then there's the Scientist. He's a scientist. The Imagined and the Order will leave the Imagined Order just out of guilt. Good for them. And then there's the Origin and the Visitor, who I'm gonna save until we get there. Along with this resistance, we also gotta deal with the last reality, this basically being the folks who work with the Nothing. See, Nothing in 0 point got a lot of beef. The 0 point keeps making life. The Nothing wants Nothing to be around. So the Nothing nabbed an army capable of sending things like zombies and Kevin the Cube to goof up the Imagined Order's testing of the loop. So the Nothing has agreed to spare this reality just so the rest of it can be nothing. The last reality as such has a simple goal: make every other reality freaking die. And so, Reality 0 has to go. They really only have 2 characters of importance right now, those being the Cube King and the Cube Queen. And even then, the King did the math. He thought about it, he realized, wait a second, every other reality besides mine is a lot of deaths on my hands. I don't know if I like that very much. And he did like that very much. Instead, he grabbed one of those sticks and blanket things I see in every cartoon, but I don't know what they're called. And then the Cube King leaves his home, joins the 7, and becomes the Origin. And with all of that being said, we have now finished the prologue. All of that was set up, that was revealed slowly across the years, but now we know it all, so we don't need to backtrack. We are now officially at the start of the game on July 21st, 2017, Chapter 1. It's Fortnite. For the first 6 months, we witnessed what's really just fighting without rhyme or reason. At this time, we don't know what's going on, but nowadays, we can rest easy knowing that this is the equivalent of purgatory. The only thing I remember about this era was all the empty mountains on the west. Why were there so many mountains? There was only like 2 locations on the west side. Did they just forget to add more? I remember I got my first solo win right here, and then I got Black Knight because I grew up in an isolated house in the woods. There was no neighborhood kids, only Fortnite, the rodents in the walls, and the voices in my head. In actuality, we can skip the first 2 seasons and go straight to season 3 and 4, when on March 20th, 2018, a giant meteor makes its merry way into Fortnite-topia and decimates Dusty Depot. Now, in this meteor, the Visitor somehow found his way into the rock and for a time becomes subjected to suffering in the loop. All while this is happening, funny Fortnite people are superheroes. And then it's revealed that this is not real, none of this is real, there will never, ever be superheroes in Fortnite. Just give it like 2 seasons, it's fine. Visitor, disappointed by this mid-season reveal, decides to reprogram a prop rocket used in the movie to go back to his home base, and after being trapped on the island for about 3 months, is able to escape. But he causes a rift. A rift so rifty and sticky it starts snatching things up from all kinds of realities, with the most impactful one being a portion of the California desert, swapping places with the ever-iconic location, Moisty Mire. This implies Moisty Mire is in California. Out of all buildings, all the gunk taken, we only know about one real-world person being taken by the Rift. They go by Drift, who across the loading screens tragically converts to the ways of Fortnite, once being a bystander, now stuck as a cog in a machine. It's a lovely summer in 2018, seeing Drift and all of his new pals go on wacky adventures across the island every 22 minutes until the Rift strikes a mighty lightning in the California desert. Out pops Kevin the Cube. Now, Kevin was on a mission. This brave little cube would take a brave journey to each major end of the island, one step at a time. Each step being extremely big and physics-defying, and usually like 1 or 2 hours apart. Along the way, he would leave some runes on the ground and slaughter any poor loopers who dare defy him by shooting them and killing them. At the end of his brave little cubic voyage, he ends up at Loot Lake, where Kevin would then dissolve into Loot Lake and contaminate the water supply like any cube would. Now, permanently damaging a major body of water was not enough to satisfy Kevin, so he decides that the lovely little house in the middle was going to be a floating island from now on. And so Kevin's island would then become a viable Smash Bros stage. If Fortnite ever gets added, it'll be funny. Make this the stage though. Now across season 6, Kevin, being the little miscreant he is, he makes his merry way all around Fortnite, getting more and more powerful until near Halloween. We got Fortnitemares 2018, where Kevin would go back to the big crater he left behind in Loot Lake, make a giant shockwave, and it starts leaking cube monsters. This makes Kevin leak, but it ends up doing quite a number to our QB pal. He starts dying, and then he explodes, and all of the loopers are brought to this new dimension, the in-between, where this crystal butterfly flaps all over Fortnite and all the Fortnite friends and transports them back into a beautiful loot lake. Wow, what a lovely time. I'm sure glad that that's all over and Purgatory can continue. I'm sure from here on out, nothing else is gonna happen ever again. This is the point where Santa would invade Fortnite. This is Sergeant Winter. For the sake of this, he is essentially a militaristic iteration of Santa. He seems pretty cool. I'll give him like an 8 out of 10 as a Santa. The big event of the season is that the bottom left of the map has a giant iceberg cloud that everyone just rolls with for no reason. Greasy Grove is frozen over, Flush Factory is gone, even though, be honest, he didn't care. One of the new locations, Polar Peak, has an ice castle full of hate and a giant monster. What are you? Well, we don't know and we won't know. Well, not yet at least. Really, all that you gotta know is that the island thaws out as the season continues. So by the end, it's just another thing we gotta deal with. A consequence of this that literally nobody had control over, nobody could say anything about, just had to watch in horror. There's this fire guy, and he looks at the Ice King, the one of this season, on the opposite side of the map, and he goes, well, I'm gonna do that, but also the opposite of that. Yes, sirree, I'm fire versus ice. This is what season 8 is going to be about, probably. The prisoner then starts a wildfire, burning all of Wailing Woods in the process. Dick. By the way, the prisoner is also the Fire King, so he reclaims that in that section of the island. This causes a big old volcano to show up, and now this is unacceptable. See, the Imagined Order doesn't quite like new stuff going on. They were fine with the iceberg collision, they were fine with the giant purple cube crushing people and bringing monsters and zombies to destroy everything mid-season, but a volcano? Oh, hell no. So the Order starts preparing excavations across the island just as a precaution to prevent an eruption, and they also discover a vault under Loot Lake, and this was just a whole disaster for the Imagined Order. Like, the loopers find out about the vault, and considering a majority of the player base had the same level of distraction as a moth to a source of light, or your mother with a college fraternity house, the first instinct was to dive right in without any concern for their well-being. So inside the vault, we have a bunch of items that were taken out of the game, along with a desk, a helmet, and the 0 point. Hi, 0 point. It doesn't do that much right now. It offers a cigarette, but we believe in abstinence, so it gets a little upset and it kicks us out. But the Fire King, knowing the entire community and population was more concerned about the scary white and blue void with that big blue ball of omnipotence, it then decided it would now be a good idea to erupt the volcano. It deliberately backfires, but just enough to where it breaks even. We lose Retail Row, we lose Tilted Towers for real this time. We had a scare with Kevin, but it only destroyed like this one building that gets destroyed all the time, and it strikes Polar Peak, freaking out the monster underneath. And that was a lot. Let's take a quick breather and enter the minds of some of the unfortunate loopers caught in this horrible attack. We have Jonesy the First, and we have Peely. Now, Peely is a sentient banana man. Like it or not, we are stuck with him. I don't really care for Peely, and I'm tired of pretending I do. Peely has always felt like an industry plant to me. It's like Fish Stick. I like Fish Stick. I think he's silly, but Peely is not that. He is worse. Jonesy and Peely run into a hidden bunker. They find a nice little hangout zone. Only problem is that there's no food. I'm gonna mark this one up as cannibalism. And then a robot opens the door, and now the island is in the future, so this is so cool. Season 9 time. And I'm just gonna assume the exact situation happens to every other looper, so we don't know what was happening in between. This might be a plot hole or something. Yeah, I don't know how the 22-minute loop could cause the construction to occur of all of this stuff. There are so many problems with Fortnite. We're just gonna ignore it. And this fixes everything. All broken buildings have now been improved. I don't think there's anything to... Oh, the Polar Peak monster somehow has managed to sneak into the nearby ocean. And off-screen, it beats the prisoner, so he's no longer important. And then the Imagined Order decided to make the volcano into another base in case anything else happens. I'm sure that won't happen. Something like this will happen every 2 months until the end of time or until Fortnite dies. Whichever comes first. This event is awesome. The Polar Peak monster, the Devourer, it wants to get to the 0 point, and the IO don't quite jive with that idea, so they're gonna go over and end its life. And they build a Fortnite Mechazord. It's so cool. It's terrific. Giant mecha kaiju fight. It's a brutal, intense 1v1. Somehow 0 casualties, like it matters. It doesn't. And in the end, the IO mech wins when it pulls a sword out of Neo Tilted and fatally ends the beast with the help of the 0 point. In exchange, the 0 point is now exposed. And without the vault, reality starts falling in upon itself, and it takes us straight to Season X. Oh, by the way, I forgot to throw this in, but the mech was piloted by that one. So all the other members of the 7 think she might be a traitor. We can ignore that until it's convenient. This is where the 7 really start to make some moves. Time starts crumbling a bit, and Dusty Depot makes a temporary return. Along with that, the meteor is frozen in time, and in this situation, instead of the visitor being stuck, we gotta deal with the scientist. And the Imagined Order, knowing this, starts to use the mech to trap the loopers. And it works a little too well, because these mechs are considered overpowered and get removed from the game. Thank you, non-casual players. You have done exactly one good thing for the game of Fortnite. Now, before the scientist lands and loses his memory when entering the loop, he records some audio logs to remind his forgetful self on what to do. We also learn here that the visitor got to skip on the looping antics because he entered mid-recess, I think. Yeah, sure, there's a lot. I'll take a B+. So the scientist comes in, he boop-bops the rocket, and the island finale begins to come down, and as every other member of the 7, they fly down, and before you know it, 0 Point gets hit by the Dusty Depot meteor, and in response, it real quick forces everybody into a black hole.
Préparez-vous à les massacrer! Vive la France! Mettez-vous en rang! Allez, allez, allez! Je charge un boulet de canon! Préparez-vous! Allez, allez, allez! Je charge une boîte à mitraille. Feu! À l'attaque!